All right, so hi everyone. This is Niral with Shoot Your Shot Sports, and today I got a special guest, Elias Schuster from Bleacher Nation. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing? I'm always excited to talk some basketball.
Oh man, we got the sixth seed, don't we?
I know, yeah. Well, that's that should come with a very big disclaimer right now. But I mean, you got to say it while you can, right? You got to keep saying it as much as you can.
Exactly. I mean, you know what breaks my heart is that a couple of those buzzer beaters, we could be a little bit higher right now, but
The refs, man, these refs, they this year especially for some reason, I think maybe I'm just because I'm more into it, but the refs have really been getting under my skin this year. They've made some big time mistakes.
just like that foul that Kobe White had yesterday.
Yeah, no, that one was. I love what he said during the post game. He was not shy about disagreeing with the referees on that call, and I agreed. I mean, I think he fouled him while he was the dribble was going down. That's what you always want to make sure to do. That's what I thought he did, and I think he also he tried to foul him like twice before the refs even really noticed. And then I didn't even think, and even if Rubio was coming up on the dribble, I don't even think he shot it. It looked like Rubio was totally trying to pass it. So
It is what it is. We got the victory though, right?
got the dub. That's all that matters.
Dub. So yeah, just wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on the season so far? Is it going better than you expected, worse than you expected, on par?
Yeah, no, I think I would definitely label it as better than expected. I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't expect them to be towards the end of the first half. I mean, there's 3 games left, 3 of which are going to be pretty difficult, I think, for them to pull off. But right now they sit, 15 and 16. I'm shocked that it's good enough to be with the 6th seed, just where how bad the East is. Only 2 games separate the 4 through 11 seeds here, but I think you got to consider what we've seen so far a pretty big win. I mean, this is a 22 win team from last year. I think what we've learned so far is that there actually is some workable, talented pieces on this roster, and that and coaching matters a lot, right? So I think we've learned that coaching really does matter. So we're seeing some really exciting progress, and I definitely think it's been I would consider it better than expected. The second half schedule though is going to be really tough.
Those first few games look especially the last 4 to end the season. If we're in a playoff push, kind of worried about that. Twice against the Nets, and then I forgot the other 2. But so the last few games, we've been on a little bit of a tear, I feel. Maybe if you consider it a tear. And I know that kind of coincides with Wendell Carter coming back. Do you attribute it to that, or do you think it's just a lot of things coming together with Zach going off and Billy Donovan coaching better? Or your thoughts?
I think it definitely relates to Wendell. I think there was this weird crowd, and I don't want to be called too weird. I don't know if you were a part of it. If you were, we can talk it through. The start Daniel Gafford crowd really confused me because while I understand, good, I'm glad to hear it. It's just I think what people really liked about him was, they saw flashy dunks, they saw blocks, and they're like, well, that's what you want from a center, right? Let's go get that. And it's like, well, not exactly. Why do you think, Andre Drummond isn't a super coveted center right now in the league, or like this, isn't this all-star center anymore? And it's because those type of guys, and Andre Drummond can rebound way better than Daniel Gafford ever can. It's just the same type of products. They're both very limited players that can do flashy things, or that can sometimes pile up the box score with, maybe they get a box and you think it's super. People look at that and they get really excited. But he really, really struggled, and he didn't fit into that position. And so I think the team. The way that Donovan's running the system, it really does revolve around having this versatile center. He talked about it a lot during the preseason. They need Wendell in there because he does open up the offense. When Gafford got the ball at the free throw line, he's not going to turn around and shoot. He did it once, maybe twice when he was in there, which was shocking. Everyone, even I think Stacey King on the broadcast freaking out. Everybody was shocked. But Wendell really does help you open up the offense because he does give you a little bit of threat from that free throw line. He also is just more. He may not be more athletic, but he's just more versatile in terms of his ability to go off the dribble. His court vision is really improved. I think what's really impressing me though, since Wendell's come back, I think his physicality is at another level that we haven't seen before. I don't know if he just feels way healthier. I don't know if it's, the Donovan effect or what it is, but he's definitely attacking the rim a lot stronger. I think he's seeing the court better. His assist numbers are looking pretty solid. Yeah,
Shoot
which
three.
is he's shooting three. So yeah, I think he's definitely a huge part of this little run that we've seen. It's also, it's related to other things as well, but he's having himself a pretty good season, and I'm hoping that fans are kind of seeing what he brings to the court now that we saw him off the court. They're really seeing that he actually does help this team quite a bit.
So, you mentioned, he gets the ball at the free throw line a lot. And I noticed him and Thaddeus Young both do that a lot when Zach is double teamed. And I know that trade deadline is coming. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that we're going to get rid of Thaddeus Young, which I hope doesn't happen because I think he is such an integral piece and such a great veteran presence? But your thoughts on that? Or should we try to pursue somebody? Or what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so it's so hard to tell for several reasons. And I keep kind of waffling, honestly, back and forth on this because I think that he's reached a point, Thaddeus has, where he actually is so valuable to the team where it's hard to really justify letting him go. Before the season started, it was kind of we're probably going to let him go for whatever because his contract, while he's got a solid contract, he definitely can help a contending team. It's just last year, and we see that there are a lot of things that last year we shouldn't take anything from last year really and relate to this year. But he was not. The only thing we can think of is like, okay, maybe he's just not going to fit in what they're trying to do. He doesn't fit with the timeline, whatever. But I think what we're seeing this year is that off the court, his leadership has definitely been very helpful. He's been very outspoken, and all the players. I mean, Levine called him the MVP of the team, and Wendell said that while he was sitting. I think the reason that we're seeing Wendell take these leaps on offense is because of Thaddeus in a lot of ways, because he's seeing what Thad can do, and Thaddeus is giving him support. But on the court too, we've never seen in this offense Thaddeus is just kind of thriving in it. He has this all around skill set that is really helpful, but he's just a smart basketball player. And so when he's as smart as he is, and he's played as much basketball as he has, he knows how to get these young guys involved, and he knows, and they're all athletic, so they can get open, and he can kind of find them. So to get back to what the question is, whether they should look to trade him, I think you can only trade him if it's a shocking offer, because at this point, the conversation is if you trade him, the team's probably going to take a step backwards. And do you want to make the playoffs or not? And if you trade him, to me, that says, okay, we don't really care that much about making the playoffs, and that's okay. I mean, if that's what the front office wants to do. But I also think at this point with these young players, and they obviously want to probably build around some of them, Levine at this rate looks like he's going to be a max player for them. They're going to want it. They're invested in Patrick Williams. Kobe White, they seem invested in because they didn't look toward a point guard during the offseason. So obviously that shows even if they get one in the future, they're very interested in what Kobe White can offer them. And when you're invested to that many young pieces, getting to the playoffs really helps.
Yes.
And, even if it is you get the 8th seed and you win the play-in tournament, even if you're in the play-in tournament only, or if you win the play-in tournament, you get the 8th seed and then you're playing the freaking Sixers, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter. All of that is going to be really helpful because those are games that really matter, and they teach young players a lot. And I think any young player that have been in those situations will tell you they learned a lot from it, and any coach will too. I think it's easy to write it off and say, well, that stuff doesn't really matter that much. And you're like, well, no, it does. That's a step in the development process for a lot of players. So I think it's going to be a situation where they're going to trade him if it really blows them away. But the thing is, I think they could potentially get that offer. Because if you're looking at the market right now, there's not a lot of super high-end talent out there. So there's a possibility that Thaddeus is actually one of the best options on the market, and a team that is desperate says, okay, fine, here's an offer you can't refuse. And they throw in, solid pick compensation plus, a young player that actually looks like he could be part of a core or something. So I'm very interested to see. It's a conversation we're going to have to continue to have for the next month and see how Thaddeus continues and how the rest of the team goes.
So do you think we should pursue anybody else possibly by trade that could help improve the team? Because I know a couple of pieces or position areas that I think we're sorely lacking in, but
yeah, well, I think, point guard, right? So that's the thing. I think I wouldn't be opposed to it. This goes to the question: do you want to be a buyer or a seller, right? And I think you definitely don't want to buy. This is not a just because you're in the 6th seed. I don't think. Again, let's remember two separate 4 through 11. So you don't want all of a sudden, and you do have a lot of young players, and you still are evaluating this roster. So you don't want to get in this position where you're buying too much, and then your team actually isn't very good, and then you kind of just threw away the flexibility you had this offseason. You got a lot of nice cap space and all this stuff. So you want to be careful there. But at the same time, if there is a nice piece out there that can help the team, you want to go get it. I just don't know personally who you're going to give up for that. I know at point guard, like you say, is the position that there's no reason why the Bulls shouldn't look into it. And Lonzo Ball, for example, is the guy that everyone brings up. And I actually have I was very against it originally, but I've come around more to the idea of Ball. It is fit for this team, actually, especially with how fast they play. But I also think he's a restricted free agent this offseason. And it's like, what do you want to give up for him now that's really going to help you? If Thaddeus is part of that, do you think Thaddeus helps you potentially more right now?
I think so.
And if it's a guy like Lonzo, like, you could, if you really like him and the front office is really invested in him, then you could just try to make a run for him this offseason. Because the only way you do trade for him is if, behind the scenes you have some sort of agreement that you're going to sign him. Again, you don't just trade for that guy and lose some assets to eventually lose him in 4 months. So yeah, I think it's going to be really curious. I don't see them buying a lot of pieces at all. If anything, I think it's just going to be maybe trade that and you get a couple assets and you try to replace that with someone who can fill the role right away so they can keep winning a little bit. But for right now, I bet they're pretty comfortable in the situation that they're in, and they don't want to risk losing any of their assets and losing any of their flexibility this offseason.
It's such a breath of fresh air from the last, I don't know how many years with our front office that we actually got in my mind, a competent type of general manager that's actually doing the right things. And like, I really have trust in them about this. And that whole scare about trade Zach LaVine or whatnot, I hope that's put to rest now, especially because this guy is playing out of his mind. But, the next few weeks look pretty tough, especially pre and post All-Star break. What do you think is going to happen around those times? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, it's going to be, I think the trade deadline, as we near it, it's going to be very telling for, you bring up like the faith that we have in this front office. I agree with you completely. I think that, I know that they haven't done a lot for us to say like, oh yeah, they're super great, but at the same time, they haven't done anything bad yet. So we can't, so I think if anything, all they've done has been pretty good stuff because we've seen them hire Billy Donovan, and we know how much of an impact that's already happened. Everyone was shocked that he was arguably the best coach on the market at the time, and they somehow landed him. And then we've seen them, the 2 moves they have made roster wise. Patrick Williams, everyone was a little questionable at that at first. I thought it was a fine pick. Yeah, I thought it was a fine pick. I was between him, Halliburton, and Okoro. And Okoro has looked okay, and then Halliburton's looked pretty good. But Williams, I'm completely been fine with. I think he's a great building block for them. And then, Garrett Temple has been a great, very inexpensive add during free agency. So for me, it's going to be interesting to see what they do at the trade deadline, because I think that's going to be, they haven't spoken to the media and stuff for a while. I think that'll be our first new glimpse of, okay, what's their plan? Because if they do trade that, for example, and they maybe, that tells us, okay, they have a little bit of a longer vision. They're okay with maybe losing some more games. If they keep him and maybe they add a piece, then that tells us, okay, maybe they're, going to be, they actually really do care about getting to the playoffs right now and trying to win. And so these next several weeks, I'm going to see how these games kind of influence that decision making, because I do think you're right. They're going to be a hard schedule. So, if the team does start to stumble down the standings more, do we start to get a little more rumbles of, okay, they're thinking about scare, they're thinking about, making this move. And then if they somehow pull off a couple wins, is it going to still be really quiet and we're not going to hear anything? And then the deadline is going to come and go and they don't do anything. So I bet every game really matters in this. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how this tough slate, how they handle it and how they perceive what happens during it. Because it's going to be hard. The last 3 games of this half, especially, the Suns come tomorrow, and then they have the Raptors and Nuggets, and that's gonna be tough.
That's a tough 3 to get through, but hopefully we do. And so, one final question: playoffs, yay or nay?
I think play in. Does playing count as
no, playoffs in or out?
Playoffs in or out? I'm gonna say they are in. I'm saying in because I consider the play-in tournament the playoffs for this year. Yeah. And I think they can. And I do think right now, based off what I've seen and this team. Yeah, I think that they're going to get. And honestly, if what we've seen right now, I think they can be like the 9 at the 9 seed, and if they scoop into the 8, that's great. But I think they could be a 9 seed, and if they're the 8 seed, I think they win their game. And so I don't know. I just think that they definitely are a playing team right now, and if they're a playing team, then that gives them a good shot at the playoffs more than it doesn't. So
awesome. Well, it was a pleasure speaking to you, Elias. Do you want to throw out your Twitter handle for everybody?
Yeah, you can follow me at @Schuster_Elias. That's SCHUSTR. If it's somewhere on the screen, just @ in front of it for last name, then first name. And then, of course, go follow BN Bulls at BN_Bulls. That's where most of, honestly, all my Bulls takes and all of our content is going to be. My personal's fine too, but the Bulls account is what you really want to follow.
Gotcha. Well, it was a pleasure speaking to you, man. Have a good day.
Thanks so much, man.